Now, some of you may be wondering why I keep referring to this as a reverse or a return loop. So let me explain. In the history of the club, originally we were set up like this, and we had, here I'll draw some table marks here. So we have these tables, each of them are 2 feet wide, 4 feet long. However many of them we get into a straight, we'll do that many in a straight, and then we've got something like this, the straight in here. So we've got each of these is a roughly 2 foot by 4 foot section. I know it's the shittiest drawing in the world, but nonetheless try to imagine it. And we had 2 sets of tracks. Now this first track over here is really in at 4.5 inches, and this is in at 6 inches on center, boink, boink, from this outside edge. So that gap would be, oh, this is going to be tough because we're upside down. 4 and 1 half inches, and from here to here is 6 inches. Anyway, the idea being that everything was DC at the start, and to simplify things, to make sure that the trains always ran in the same direction. So you got the little train going along like this, and the other rail you got the little train going along like this. Whether it's separate or the same transformer, doesn't matter. So to keep that consistency, the inside was red all the way around, and then black. These are the power feeds. So this is the positive, if you will, and then the black would be the ground or negative. And you do the same thing on the outside one, where that would be negative and that would be positive. So far so good. I mean, you can, that works perfectly well. And this was done for initially for, oh geez, I can't write upside down, for DC. But over time, DCC came along, and so what happened is they made this track was still DC, and they made this track DCC. Okay, now we could run our DC trains around the inner route. So you got your DC train sitting on here, and you've got your DCC trains sitting out here. So you could still run them both around without any problem. And this layout was set up as a pretty large layout. I mean, it was 30 feet long by 15 feet wide. And in order to get into the center, there was an underduck piece. So this was a special piece that was put in that had nothing under it. And this track's at 1 meter high, so you had to bend down underneath it to get into this part, or you got down to your hands and knees and crawled. Well, some of us started getting older, and with time it got to a point of that's just not going to work. So what happened is people decided, let's change this up. And by the way, by now we had gone to, everything was DCC, so we go like that, and both DCC and the trains all ran around in that way. Got to a point of saying we got to get rid of this underduck. So one of the club members went, and we got rid of that, and instead we built a return loop that looks kind of like this. Another one on this that looked like, now this is obviously not to scale. And then we join these tracks. So you see what happens if we do this loop here and we join this track like this. We come around and we got an issue. This track, same kind of thing, still we've got a short that's occurring right here. And of course the same occurs over on the other side. So just to complete this, we'll take this guy in here like this, and we'll do our nice return loop like this. Except it doesn't connect into red over there. It goes in front of the red. Tries to connect into the black. The black one over here goes all the way around the outside. Remember, these are power feeds that I'm drawing on here, and so now we end up, in this case the way I've drawn it, with a problem there where we're going to get a dead short. Seeing as that happened, people said, well, we got to do something, and so we put in an auto reverse loop. So we put in an AR, and what that means is here and here, here and here, we put in a isolation gap. So these are isolation gaps. And we used a PSX-AR, but you can use any auto reverser, doesn't matter what you use, although I have a video on some are better than others. Nonetheless, this gap went in here, and now what happens is this is all electrically isolated from this. And so when a train comes along and gets to here, when it gets to this point, it says, when I cross here, if there's a dead short, I'm going to switch the polarity of this so it matches this. Now you can see that switched in this case. In this case, it comes along, the polarity is the same. It's going to go around the corner, going to come back, and when it gets to here, it's going to hit a short at this point. This auto-reversing electronic circuitry imperceptibly, really fast, milliseconds, I don't know, but it's really quick, flips the polarity of these guys so that the black one becomes red and the red one becomes black. And so I'm not going to bother drawing it, but you get the picture. It flips the polarity, so now this guy gets to keep going. Okay, and of course now he goes all the way around. We'll get rid of that train. Comes all the way around here, and as he goes, oh, polarity's fine. He goes through here, comes there, gets a dead short over on this one, and this flips polarity, and now he's okay going all the way around, coming back here. Remember, the polarity had flipped here, so when he gets to there, it'll be a dead short, flip the polarity, come around, dead short, flip the polarity, and that's how these auto-reversing loops are going to work. That all sounds great, and it does. It works really well, and that's what our club's doing. But I'm going to erase this for a minute. But before I do, I just want to re-emphasize the reason that this was done like this is historical. Historically, we always had red to the inside and black to the outside. It does facilitate one more very interesting thing, though. If you are going to do a crossover on these rails, so normally the direction of travel is this guy goes along the outside like that, comes around and goes on the inside the opposite direction. So you've got a direction of travel established now where this guy goes this way, this guy goes this way. You can, however, put in a crossover. And if I put in a crossover, let's say I put one in here, I would cross over from here to here, and I would cross over from here to here. Now you notice that the polarity is the same. I'm going red over to red, I'm going black over to black. And you do have to worry about your frogs. So there and there, just like in a turnout, you have to worry about those, but you can handle those. But the nice thing is if you ever wanted to do that, this is set up electrically that it works perfectly for that. Of course, the only issue is now you've got one train motoring along this way and this train goes like this, and it doesn't work so well. And you could say, well, then let's just put in a double crossover, and of course you could do that. You do a double by doing that there, and then this would go here, and then you got more frogs to worry about. But it's all manageable, and we do have that occasionally. But we found for running it doesn't make a lot of sense. If you could put a second double crossover in here, and you could have the train going like that, and another one going like that. But again, then the crossover is where trains could meet, and so we just haven't done that. The other thing is, there are some limits now because of this auto reverse, and let me erase this and show you that in a little bit bigger view, or try to anyway. Geez, I wish we could tear down and set up our layout that fast. Anyway, I'm going to use blue. Here's one of the auto reverse sections that we have. Incidentally, these are our old auto reverse sections. And this is another table over here. So we have this track coming in like this, and it goes around like this. And then this track goes like, oh, that's a blue one, I actually wanted a black one. Goes like that. This goes all the way around like that. And remember, this track is red there and black there. Okay? And these two colors flip, 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 based on these sections here where there's isolation joiners in. Okay, so that's the same picture as we drew before. Now, the issue being is if I have a long train, well, let's start with a simpler one. If I have a locomotive and I went around and I went, and let's say I had one in here and it was just parked there. Another locomotive comes in like this and stops. So if it stops right there, it's going to force this auto reverse loop here into this polarity. Because it bridges here, these have to be the same, otherwise it would be a short. Now this guy comes out, as soon as he touches these rails here, it creates a short. This auto reverse loop tries to flip, but it can't flip because this guy's holding it in that position. And it does this flippy thing. Circuit breaker kicks in, this whole thing drops until these are cleared. What's that mean? Well, normally you're not going to park there, but I may have two trains. This train's going like this relatively fast, comes around, and just as it's coming out, the other train comes in. That creates a dead short. And this part of the system will shut down and the circuit breaker will kick in. Another problem that can happen is if I have certain trains like Caddo, passenger cars, have a strip along the whole car underneath, a copper strip, and the whole thing's powered for lights internally. And that copper strip acts as a conductor between one wheel set to another. So in that case, if I have a really long passenger car set, and this engine's going around, and it gets to here, but not all the cars have gone in yet, and one of these passenger cars is over here, then it's going to be causing a short when this guy's trying to cause the short, and again this thing's going to shut down. The last situation that can happen, even if you don't have that, oh, and another thing, that not only are there passenger cars from Caddo, but there's also some cars have a FRED, a flashing rear end device, and they pick up power from the track, and depending how they do, those wheels can cause a short here. And so can those cars that are hooked up with a resistor in the wheels in order to be used for track signaling, but I'm not going to worry about that one too much. The other issue that you need to be aware of is metal wheel sets. Metal wheel sets are really small around, but they're enough to bridge here. So if I have a long train and that train has metal wheel sets, when this guy comes and touches here and those metal wheel sets touch here, they're going to create a short here and here. And even if that doesn't happen just with the engine, if I have a long train with lots of metal wheel sets, at some point you'll have a metal wheel set there and a metal wheel set there, and that will cause a short. What's all that mean? That means you can't run trains longer than ones that will fit within this loop. So you need to make sure when you're running your trains that none are longer than the loop. And you need to make sure that nobody comes into the loop until somebody exits the loop. Okay, so you can have somebody parked inside the loop and somebody can enter. But again, they can't exit till this guy's all the way in. So it creates some complications. Now, this was the original reversing loop, and what we're currently doing in order to help alleviate it, by the way, these were 5 feet long, and how wide were they? I'm thinking 2-3 feet wide, although I can't remember exactly. We decided to, and they were aging, so we decided to build new auto reverse loops or return loops. And that's what these videos are about. And instead of doing it like this with one big piece, we went ahead and we'll reverse this. We created something larger, and we'll draw it like this. It goes to there. This goes in half, because what we really use is 3 regular size tables. And that means we're 2 feet wide here and we're 4 foot wide there. And the track, in essence, this guy comes in. Now, bear in mind that in reality, we'll just erase this to show this a little bit better. In reality, this is 4.5 inches in, and this guy on center is 6 inches in. Okay, so that's what the 2 tracks are really like. And so for auto reverse, what we do, I'm just going to draw the track, is we have a new track, goes along like this, nice big loop, comes back here, comes across here, and then comes into there. So that's basically the loop. And then we started to get a little bit fancier and decide that we could do 2 loops. And so we come in, we have this branch off like this, come around like this, and then we have it joined back in there. Okay, and so this is AR1 and AR2, and then we have a removable piece in here. So we have a demarcation line here and here. So at these, everything is contained in here. This is the actual auto reverse section. This part has the same polarity as these guys, and then once we get to here, the polarity changes. Now we started to get even fancier with this. We decided, well, let's have a siding out front. So we do one of these things like this. That goes there. This goes along with another siding there. This goes through there in case there's an extra track there. This comes off of here to feed an engine repair facility. And there's also another track that goes along here in case there's one there. And then we've stuck in drawing the one that we're working on. We have a turntable here, a roundhouse here with 3 tracks, another 3 tracks, another 3 tracks. This comes off of here into the roundhouse with 2 tracks coming off the roundhouse. We have another one going in there. We have another series in here. Over here we have an engine repair facility. We have a bunch of tracks going in there, some more here. So you see it gets pretty busy. However, the key thing is that this here, let me get the right pin out. This here and this here is a demarcation point for these 2 auto reverse loops, which means we need 2 auto reversers. Hopefully that didn't get too complicated and kind of explains why we need auto reversers. Having said all that, if at the time people went to the very first loop, if they had instead gone in here and changed the polarity of these guys so that they were like this, and now I'm going to get rid of all of my track in here. If that had all been changed over at this point, then in here, track would have gone and polarity on this track would have been like this. And this is probably how you set up your loop at home. Okay? So that requires no auto reversers. But in order to do that, we had all of these modules like this that were not wired that way. And all of the club members would have had to change their wiring in order to facilitate this. And because this is a club contributed module at the time, that wasn't something that was done. So we don't have this. So we'll just get rid of the whole thing. The fact is, we need auto reversers, and as per the videos that you're watching, that's why we're doing all that, and that dictates why we have the wiring that we do. Hopefully that explains it all, and let's get back to the video.